Well, there we go. There is the race in Mexico, done and dusted. Something that started out as totally different is how it has actually finished. So, start of the weekend, we think that Max Verstappen and Red Bull Racing are going to take it. Now, I just want to quickly mention Saturday. Now, obviously, you'll all know what has happened, and some of you might not do. It was quite late in the UK where we got the message. Some people might not have even realised until today, and that's Max Verstappen. Valtteri Bottas crashes out on the final corner, going around a very hefty impact for him. Max Verstappen, as long as the other drivers, Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel, have to slow down with the yellow flag shown on their indicator. Now, Max already had pole position, didn't slow down, crossed the line with his time, which he actually went faster on. So, in a normal world, he hasn't gone slow from the yellow flags. That's fine. The time should be deleted, but he's already got pole position, so it doesn't really matter. But in this case, Max Verstappen quite, mentions it in the press conference, quite ignorant, I'm sorry to say, not really taking advantage too much about it. He said that he saw it, but the team says that he didn't. Long story short, the FIA decided to award him a 3-place grid penalty, along with 2 penalty points on his racing lap, and of course the fast lap deleted. So this ultimately leaves him back in fourth place, and then that is where this race starts off. It starts with Charles Leclerc in first place, Sebastian Vettel in second, Lewis Hamilton in third, Max back in fourth, his tied teammate Alexander Albon in fifth place, and Valtteri Bottas in sixth, who, as I've just mentioned there, had a big impact on the qualifying. So it was a good job by the Mercedes guys. You've got to say that they were definitely the starter out team of the day. Getting that chassis built and obviously avoiding any problems to the gearbox or any parc fermé regulation breaches. So they started in sixth place. Now, what a great race that we had. Really, really entertaining. It's probably not the most entertaining Mexican Grand Prix we've had. Obviously, we've had Max Verstappen win here on 2 occasions. Also, Lewis Hamilton win here on 2 occasions of the World Championship. Also, remembering the amazing 2016 race we had where third place was delayed on the podium. I think it was Seb stopped off for Max, and obviously the controversy around that. But before we get into anything, let's run through the permutations of this race. That might surprise you if you haven't seen it. Lewis Hamilton wins the race, of course, the champion who has had a bit of a dry spell in Formula 1 in recent days. He could win the World Championship this weekend. Has he done it? We'll have to find out. Spoiler alert, no he hasn't. Sebastian Vettel finishes in second place. Valtteri Bottas finishes in third. Now, one position higher, or 2 positions higher, if you like, than where Lewis could have won the championship. But Valtteri, the Finnish driver, makes it from 6th to 3rd. Good effort from him. Charles Leclerc in 4th position. The 2-stop not working great. Unfortunately, Ferrari messed up on the strategy again. Something that is quite prevalent that we saw in the first part of the year. Alexander Albon in 5th place. Now, this is amazing. Max in 6th. Now, we've seen loads of drivers come through, but he ended up in plumb last. We'll get onto that in a little bit, but plumb last to 6th is very good from him. Sergio Perez, the man of the hour, of course. The Mexican fans loved him and spurred him on to finish in 7th. Danny Rick in 8th. Fiat in 9th and Gasly in 10th. Now, Toro Rosso drivers doing a good show. Not really much change from them. Danny Rick, basically, the Renault drivers were out on a mission this weekend, and that was because of, after Japan, they got disqualified, because of their brake, whatever. 11th place, Nico Hulkenberg, Mr. Nearly Man, of course, keeping his name alive. Lance Stroll in 12th place. Bit of a home race for him in the Americas. Not a great race for him. Racing point, obviously Checo Perez doing a good job in that. Lance just not really being able to capitalise on his part. Sainz in 13th now, had a good start, very, very good, challenging Hamilton, we'll get onto that in a bit, and obviously 13th position, not very good from him. Not a great pit stop from him, obviously on the 2-stopper, messed up a bit on the tyres, wasn't great from him. Giovinazzi, 14th position, so yeah, decent from him. Kevin Magnussen in 15th position, and George Russell in 16th. Roman Grosjean in 17th. And the last of the runners is, of course, Robert Kubica. The 2 retirements that we had today, quite strangely enough, were 2 of the committed retirees, so they willfully drove into the pit lane to retire. And that was Kimi Räikkönen, who did have a minor problem with the car, but wanted to save it more for Austin. And, of course, Lando Norris, who was going nowhere, unfortunately, ran in 20th position for the laps that he was in the race, obviously, after the pit stop. But we'll get onto that in a bit. So, as I've just said there, the race started with Max basically heavily penalised. 2 Ferraris, Ferrari 1-2, and Lewis Hamilton. What was going to happen? Now, Max had said before the race, if I want to go into turn one leading, and I will even do that backwards, which is a bit worrying. I think a lot of times I was actually watching the race and I was thinking, well, only two things can happen here. Max is going to lead into turn one, or he's going to crash into turn one because he wants that so much, and he was going to take the inside route. Now, he was really challenging Lewis Hamilton on the start. Hamilton went on the grass a bit and they were basically tussling. Hamilton got oversteer into corner 2 and pushed himself and Max Verstappen wide, so there was a bit of jostling there. It meant that Verstappen actually dropped down the order and was battling with Carlos Sainz. Lewis Hamilton also dropped down, I think it was 5th position, having to claw himself back. It wasn't great from them. Not a very good start, allowing the two Ferraris to basically get the run. Charles Leclerc, very, very strong on the first corner. He managed to leapfrog Sebastian Vettel at the start, and Sebastian actually was pushed a little bit wide on corner 1 by Charles Leclerc, but brilliant from him. No problems whatsoever. It ended up a Ferrari 1-2, and of course a challenging pack behind. Valtteri Bottas was charging in the main field. Alexander Albon jumped up to 4th position, obviously challenging Valtteri Bottas, sticking his head in as he could, but there was no Verstappen and there was no Hamilton because those two were dropping down the field. A few laps came around where it was some really good tussling. I think going in after the lap 2, lap 3, lap 4, watching the corner 1 overtake from the slipstream was absolutely incredible. The highest altitude race that we have here, I think it's over 2,000 metres, and the second shortest lap, obviously with one of the longest straights, 800 metres from the start line to turn 1, made it really, really great to watch. Valtteri Bottas and Max Verstappen came into a bit of touching in the stadium section, so obviously great for the fans that were actually watching that. This ultimately led to Verstappen getting easily passed on the main straight. We're all thinking what was going on. Valtteri Bottas pulls in front of him, easy overtake from him. Again, it's a good corner, but it turned out that Max Verstappen had a punch. He had actually caught Valtteri Bottas's front tyre as they were going around the corner. It was a rear tyre punch for Max Verstappen. The carcass flew straight off as this happened, and it comes into the pit. 20th position, plumb last. It's not good for him. A few laps later, there was some other changes to the grid order, which meant that Verstappen went from 20th to 19th. Lando Norris was the first of the pitters, and he came into the McLaren garage, but a slow pit stop from him meant that he didn't have the rear left on at all. Now, a common problem that we've seen for messing up their pit stops, Haas and the wheel gun in Australia, it might kind of remind you of, but Lando Norris not having a good pit stop. He pulled over just before he left the pit lane, and he was pushed back to get that repaired. As I say, he left in 20th position and no changes from him. He ran in 20th for about 20 odd laps until he ultimately pulled the car in for retirement. See, I've seen that before. I've seen that with my own eyes. Charles Leclerc had to pull the car in Monaco, but it is better that they do save the chassis, they do save the tyres and the engine and all that stuff for obviously the next race in Austin, a special race for McLaren as always, and they should get some decent points there, so it wasn't very good. Switching to their counterpart, Carlos Sainz. Now again, he was having a good race, running in 6th place, battling Lewis Hamilton, as I said at the start, battling Max Verstappen, but a bit of an error on the pit stops and the strategy meant that he fell quite severely down the order. It was a big battle to say who was going to get the strategies right, who was going to be on the medium tyres and the hard tyres, and how many pit stops was going to allow. Now, Lewis Hamilton did a one-stop strategy, which meant that he pitted around just before halfway in the race, ran the hard tyre until the end of the race, which was about 40 laps. Now, Ferrari had the intention that Lewis Hamilton's tyres were going to drop off and that they could capitalise on that. Charles Leclerc was running a two-stop strategy, which he finished on the medium tyre. Sebastian Vettel was on the one-stop strategy. Now again, as I've just said there, he was behind Lewis Hamilton for the remainder of the race, and he was hoping that Lewis's tyres would drop off. That was not the case. Really, really unfortunate. A really slow pit stop for Valtteri Bottas meant that he did drop a little bit down the order, but ultimately a good finish from him. As I say, Charles Leclerc, not getting the permutations right, not getting a good finish in that car. The two-stop strategy is just not working. But ultimately a very good race. Now again, I've just said there that the Renault drivers, not a great race from them. Force India doing pretty well. The Williams drivers showing some good tussling, but only between themselves. Really not performing, not doing the best that they could. But not much that could be said about them. Overall, I would say a very good race. Toro Rosso getting some good points. Basically the only team really staying out of trouble. and it is good from them. Now, as I just said there at the start, Lewis Hamilton didn't win the World Championship at this race. He needed to leave Mexico with 78 points. He has 76, I believe, with obviously the first place from him. No fastest lap for Lewis, and a third place from Valtteri Bottas. So that is not very good. So that means he only walks away with 10 points ahead of Valtteri. He needs an extra 4, so 74 points ahead of Valtteri, which he should have had 78. So this goes on to Austin. He has to leave the US Grand Prix with 52 points, so that should be very easy for him to do. My race rating, I would say it's a pretty good race. It started out, a lot of good overtakes, a lot of good things. About first 5 laps, really good. A lot of overtakes, a lot of battles, obviously, with Verstappen and Hamilton with the puncher, made it quite spicy. Albon making a really good start, jumping up to 4th place behind Valtteri Bottas, really pressuring him, and again, looking like a very strong Ferrari 1-2. The first few laps, I was going to say, really, really high up. Kind of got a little bit boring, but the pit stops controversy, the pit stop problems made it quite juicy, and overall, I'm going to give it a solid 7.5 out of 10. Jordan, on the other hand, has given the race a 6 out of 10, so kind of chopping it just a little bit higher than halfway. As I say, it was quite spicy, had quite a few good points in there. Lewis Hamilton doesn't get crowned. It also was good to see Max Verstappen coming through the main field. Now, as I say, Max Verstappen started out in P4 after he should have had P1 yesterday. Now, just quickly on my side about qualifying on the Saturday. Do I think that it was right? I don't actually think it was right. Now, the FIA rules are that if you don't comply in qualifying, your time is deleted. This applies to track limit and also slowing down for things like VSC and things like that during the qualifying stage. Now, if that was the case, Max's time would have been deleted. It had gone back to first place because he already had pole position. And that would have been absolutely fine, but because the stewards wanted to make a little bit of example out of him, the reason why that is because, sometimes Max just kind of gets away with a little bit more than he should do. He thinks that he's a little bit above the FIA. If you want proof of that, that's kind of going back to Brazil 2018 when he had that tussle with Esteban Ocon. Crashed with him, thought he was in the right, having to go at him on the radio, didn't want a penalty, and then obviously the pushing in the Wayne Bridge just showed that he thought he was over the FIA's heads. This wasn't the case, and he was quite heavily penalised. Now, I did not agree with that in the slightest. I know that a lot of people did. I thought that he should have started on pole position, mainly for the fact that, yes, he has done something wrong, but he already had pole position. Just forget, the last lap that he was doing. He wasn't in breach of anything that, getting involved with anything that Bottas was doing, but just forget that he was even there. The last lap that he did, the start of Q3, was fast enough, so should have started in P1, and maybe none of these problems would have happened. But as I say, he did do it. He had a tussle with Bottas. He went down to the bottom of the grid, 20th position, and obviously managed to claw his way up to 1 position below his teammates, well, 5th and 6th for Red Bull. Very, very strong. So again, obviously a lot of people will be voting him driver of the day. I do believe that he won driver of the day for the official Formula 1 page. Now, we thought it was an incredible race, but neither me or Jordan have given driver of the day to Verstappen. I'm going to start with Jordan first. So he has given it to Sergio Perez. Now, great race from him, obviously getting into the points. Great in front of the Mexican crowd. Obviously, they do love, especially when it's a sole driver in. The reason I'm not giving it to him is just I didn't think that he had the best race. Normally, that's a kind of expected position for Racing Point. The only reason I think that a lot of people look at that more favourably is because it's a home race and because of where Lance Stroll finished. But I'm just going to give it to the race winner of Lewis Hamilton. Now, originally I was going to give it to Bottas, and that was a big toss-up. 6th place after his crash as well, just rebuilding his confidence. But I thought that Lewis Hamilton in this race, absolutely unstoppable. Had a bit of a weird tyre strategy. He thought that his tyres were falling apart, but really managing his tyres, managing his car to the best of his ability. He had problems at the start with Max Verstappen, but, put that under his belt and finally got the race win. And again, just, seeing him on the podium and things like that, he looks really philosophical. He looks like he really deserves that. He looks really out of breath. And I'll tell you what, it was a massive fight for Lewis, and you don't normally see Lewis fighting like that much this time. He normally gets, normally has a car to deal with any problems, but today he didn't. So Lewis Hamilton is my driver of the day. Checo is Jordan's. I do think that's a good shout. Other drivers that are in contention, I guess you could say Alexander Albon, even though he was going a little bit backwards rather than forwards, but just showing that car still had pace. Of course, Max Verstappen. 20th to 6th is absolutely incredible. Really, really strong from him. I was going to give it to Carlos Sainz until he dropped back quite significantly through the race. Daniel Ricciardo, again, quite a clean race from him, getting some good points. Nico Hülkenberg, a little bit letting us down, I'd say, through that race. And of course, Sebastian Vettel. I know it sounds strange because 6 years ago today he won his fourth world championship, a drive where if Sebastian didn't win the race, if he came P2, you'd think there was a problem. But today he just seemed like a lot of things weren't going to go his way. Everyone was mentioning Leclerc for the win, everyone was mentioning Verstappen, some people were mentioning Hamilton and Bottas, but nobody was really mentioning Sebastian Vettel. So that's one of the reasons why I was going to give it to him. Really challenging Lewis. It's just, I just thought that Lewis's drive was much stronger today. So Lewis Hamilton is getting my drive of the day. Also get the race win. Absolutely incredible. 64 points ahead of Valtteri Bottas. 4 less than he needed, so the championship goes to Austin, which I'll say now the permutations will be very low. I imagine it'll both finish in the top 10, Lewis finish in the top 10 or 3 points or whatever, but it won't be much to win the championship in Austin. So let's go another week. It is a back-to-back race in Austin, so it should be a really good race for that. That is review coming by Jordan. Also stay tuned for our US Grand Prix build-up, which is obviously this week, this coming week of the debate show on Saturday. Please go and check out the last debate show as well, which came out yesterday, which talked about Alfa Romeo. Should they stay in Formula 1? Will they? Will go back to Sauber and all of that malarkey? Also as well, this is our first review, which is after 1,000 subscribers. So I want to say thank you very much to everyone who's even watched a second of our so-called entertainment channel. It really means a lot to us, and thank you very much. We made a 1,000 thank you video, so please go and check that out somewhere on the channel. We're also making a Q&A, which is going to come out in the next few weeks. So please drop your questions in the comment section below. If you are new to us, because we get a lot of new fans in the review show. So obviously, welcome aboard the channel. Hope you like us. Please go and check us out. It's been a long journey to get to 1,000, but we've enjoyed every single minute. Subscribe if you are new around here. As I say, go and check out our videos and drop us a question. It doesn't have to be anything about Formula 1. It can be about the channel. It can be who the hell is this guy. It can be what is your favourite type of cheese. It can be anything you like, and the Q&A will be coming very, very soon. So obviously that was the review of the Mexican Grand Prix. Hope you really enjoyed it. Obviously next race is Austin, and from me that's the end of the episode. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time guys, until the next episode of the F1 Debate Show, we'll see you later.